So Petrie Museum exterior inconsistent with modern lathe.
Yes, inconsistent with modern lathe,
Yeah.
yes. So then I look at the interior, and the picture for the interior is different because there are two metrics that I look at. I look at when I get a scan of a surface, so I slice it. I slice it into circular slices, and I look at how round each slice is and how concentric those slices are. So what struck me, knocked my socks off, is that every slice I took of interior surface is like near damn perfectly round. And it's near damn perfectly round at the level of a modern lathe. In fact, it's freaking consistent with the roundness you get on a modern lathe. And that was mind-blowing because, when you pick up this Petrie object, the outside looks nice. It's smooth, it's shaped, it's pretty. When you look on the inside, you see these striations, and you see the inner surface is messed up. It's imperfect. It doesn't look good, it looks visibly bad. Yet, when you slice it, even though it may be crooked, it may be lopsided, every slice is freaking perfect, and it's perfect to the degree of modern lathe.
Right.
And I was like, this makes no sense, because then when I look at how concentric these slices are, they're not concentric at all. They're poorly aligned.
Meaning they're not aligned with one another. They're curved.
So this is a good illustration. Thank you, Ryan. So this is, if I took this glass and I sliced it, every slice will be circular, perfectly circular. But overall, you see this is not straight. And this is how the interiors of Petrie objects were. Of course, this is exaggeration.
It's an exaggeration, and there's more curves
Right.
in the Petrie object,
Right.
And there's some bands that
Right.
are thinner or
Right.
wider
Yeah,
within
obviously.
it. So
Yes.
you can feel the bumps
Yes.
going up, but you're going to feel the bumps on every side
Right.
going up.
Yes.
So it's like
Yeah.
So
if you slice it, you get perfect
Right.
slices. They're just poorly aligned.
right.
And quite poorly for that matter. And also another thing that struck me when you look at Petrie objects, they hold out not perfectly coaxially. So when you pick up this pot and you see, oh gee, it's the so off center, which you don't see on modern objects. On your objects, some were off center, but most weren't. So I'd say Petrie objects were noticeably off-centered, hollowed out. And then on scans, it's visible too. When you align inner and outer surface, you see that this wall is thicker, that one is thinner. It was that obvious. Yet we have these perfectly freaking circular slices, yet they're misaligned. So I spent another month of number crunching, trying to make sense of it all. And then an idea popped into my head. Because the inevitable conclusion of it all was that the outer surface of Petrie objects was hand-shaped. Therefore, I needed a bigger sample of hand-shaped objects to compare against, because the only two ones I had was from Olga Vdovina's hard stone work, and I wanted to get more handmade vessels.
So how about this? Did you consider this, that the outside was not hand-shaped, that it was cut the same way that the inside was cut, and the inside would have been cut layer by layer by layer, right? So each time that you make a cut on the inside, it's going to make a perfect circle. You take it down, you remove the material, create a perfect circle. You take it down, you remove the material. But on the outside, they're all polished. So if you were cutting the outside layer by layer by layer, and then you went back after that and polished it with rubbing stones and abrasives and all that, then it would be smooth like what we see. But we would have so you would have taken those lathe marks out, but it would have been a little bit offset, right?
It's a brilliant idea, Matt.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me, but now that you mention it, it actually makes sense.
Yeah.
So that could very well be the case, because there are some other issues I want to point out.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is why we've been a good team, man. We've been
yeah,
a good
I
team.
think that's brilliant. Yeah, man.
I could have saved you some time.
Yeah, you could have. You could have.
My bad,
really.
man. Just call me.
So where I was going with this, I realized I needed a bigger sample of handmade stone vessels. And I thought, where would I find them? And of course, where do I find everything? Where do I find neutron generators, submarines, power plants on eBay? So I go on eBay and I'm blown by the fact that there is an industry in Egypt, alive and well to this day, where Egyptian artisans make alabaster vessels for tourists using the same manual techniques they've been practicing for thousands of years. And I reached out to the sellers, and because I'm a scientist, I always think that somebody's gonna cheat. So I say, show me a video how they make it. And this is a screenshot of the video. They sent me a bunch of videos. So the first stage, they take an alabaster and they chisel it, give it a rough shape just with a hammer. And then, they use a file or a grinding stone, to polish the surface, make it smoother. And then they use this rotary tool to hollow out the inner surface. Maybe not exactly in this steps, but this is how they do it. It's all manual. There is no machining here, no lathe, no turning, no drills. It's all manual labor. And what is important is they're not using any measuring tools. So it's all eyeballing. It's how good your vision is and how good your eye is, how good your hand and eye coordination. And the thing we need to be mindful of is that human eye is supremely precise tool. Human eye is capable of seeing imperfections on the order of 1,000th of an inch. It's very well established. So if I give you a vessel and you go like this, you'll be able to spot that it's crooked. And then if you have a rubbing stone or a file, you'll be able, to take that off. And that's what they've been doing. But they've been not trying very hard because this is a tourist vessels, and we have some of them here on the ottoman. They're like $10, $20 a piece. We're not talking them spending extraordinary amount of effort. So when I saw it, I bought like 10. And I started scanning them. And when I scanned them, I plotted them. And I almost fell off the chair because the resulting blob of points matched 100% the points from the Petrie Museum.
On the exterior? Or?
Yes, on both.
On both?
Yes, but I will qualify the interior.
Okay.
Because my quality plot, here it is. So the blue points is the Petrie objects. And the magenta points are the handmade Egyptian alabaster vessels.
Modern.
Yes. But augmented by two other vessels. One here is the red stone vessel.
But why does the inside of these feel so bumpy?
Yeah, I'll talk about it.
Okay.
First, I want to mention this. And so two additional data points were this vessel, which is made using an angle grinder by Jacob Awian, who is a friend of Ben van Kerkwijk's. So he made it from a hard stone using angle grinder. And the point for it is also smack in that data set. It's A1 there. It's almost in the middle. And I had another hard stone vessel made in a similar way by somebody else, who is M17 there. It's smack.
With modern modern power.
Yeah, with modern power
tools. Yeah.
So the main observation here is what we are seeing in this modern day, present day made alabaster vessels is they're made using eye for measurement tool and hand for polishing. And that's kind of the quality you get. It's pretty consistent. And I was surprised to see it form, such a great match to the Petrie objects. But Matt, you made a very important observation. You said the interior looks rough. And that's how the Petrie objects were. The interior felt rough. When you stick your finger inside.
Right. But these have bumps.
Petrie object had bumps.
But I thought the Petrie object had perfect circles.
Bumps are kind of consistent with perfect circles.
But they're not rings. It's like zits.
Good point.
Yeah.
This is the difference. So when I break down this analysis and I separate the circularity from concentricity, I see the difference between the modern alabaster objects and the Petrie objects. So the modern alabaster objects are not, the inner surfaces are not as circular, not nearly. They're round, but they're hand quality round. So Petrie objects, they're round, consistently with the, lathe.
And they have lathe marks
Right.
in them. The Petrie Museum have right. They have like
Right.
horizontal
Right.
tool marks.
Where the weird thing happens, I mentioned that the Petrie objects are not concentric, but these handmade objects are more concentric. So the concentricity of the inner surfaces of Petrie objects is actually worse.
Sure.
And what happens is when you add the two up and get a score, the very good circularity is compensated by poor concentricity, and you get an average that matches handwork exactly. And it kind of hides the difference.
Say that one more time.
So the quality metric has two components in it. It's circularity and concentricity. And let's say when you take an outer surface and you extract circularity and evaluate it separately, and you extract concentricity, evaluate it separately, will be an exact match to alabaster-made modern objects. And when you add this together, the score doesn't change either, okay? Now, when you go to the inner surface, and you do the same for the inner surface, you look at the circularity and concentricity separately. So the circularity of the Petrie objects is rivaling the circularity of modern lathe-made work. And it's clearly different from handmade alabaster objects. But the concentricity of Petrie objects is much worse than the concentricity of the handmade alabaster object, which is also surprising. Why? But funny enough, when you add the two, the good and the bad, you get an average that exactly matches the handmade alabaster objects.
Okay, right.
So that's why if you don't go into the detail, the match is exact.
Right. So
but if you analyze it,
the method of manufacturing was different between
Yes.
how they're making them today and how they made the
Yes.
ones for Petrie, which is visible by the tool marks within the lathe marks within the Petrie Museum inside of the artifacts versus these kind of being bumpy, but
Yes.
when you combine those two metrics, you're getting the objects that are in the same on your chart in the same circles.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the quality in general is about the same between modern made and Petrie Museum artifacts, but the method of manufacturing is different.
Well, I wouldn't say that's like an entirely accurate statement. I would say it like this. So the outer surface, I mean, I don't want to lump inner and outer surface together. I would say the outer surface of Petrie objects is entirely consistent with manual labor we see on alabaster-made modern objects. So the inner surface, I would say, is inconsistent with manual-made alabaster objects. And it's not consistent with modern-made lathe. It's consistent with modern lathe partially, as far as circularity is concerned. But it's inconsistent as far as concentricity is concerned.
Right.
And for that matter, the poor concentricity is even inconsistent with the manual labor, because manual labor gives you better concentricity, paradoxically.
Right. It's going to smooth out the differences. It's going to, yeah. I mean, it seems like it's going to, if they're going back in and grinding something on the inside and turning it with abrasives, then then if there ever were any rings or
Yeah,
anything,
they
then
will.
those are going to be smoothed
Yes,
out,
exactly.
on the inside, but also on the outside. I mean, if they're turning it and they're cutting the outside, and they are actually doing, that method of using a lathe to turn the outside and then coming back and smoothing it and polishing it with abrasives, then that would also, make that concentricity look better, but it might make that individual horizontal slice
Circularity
look a
worse,
little bit
yes.
worse.
That's
Right.
a very good observation. It's a
Yeah.
very valid point, because I was trying to conclude my analysis with proposing in a hypothesis, how the heck was this made? And of course, I cannot disregard the fact that the circularity is so perfect. So therefore, my conclusion was that I didn't think that they used a lathe. And the reason I didn't think they used a lathe, because there are some objects at the Petrie collection that didn't have handles. They look like perfectly cylindrical. And if you had a lathe, and if you wanted to make something like that, you just put it on a lathe, and you'll turn it, and you'll get your shape, and it will be perfect. But I didn't see any of that on the objects without handles. Instead, the shape of handle-less objects was once again consistent with this, manual rubbing and manual polishing, which blew my mind. And the only conclusion is ancient people weren't stupid. They wouldn't do it hard way if there was an easy way. So there wasn't a lathe. Yet, when you look on the inside, I cannot explain the marks that you see on the inside without using, some degree of high technology.
Right.
And that signature of high technology that we see is in precision of rotation.